Hi everyone, in this video I want to give you 3 really simple tips for playing with bad bishops. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video. First off, let's talk about what a bad bishop is. So a bad bishop is defined as a bishop which is on the same colour squares as its central pawns. So here we can see that black has a bishop on g7 and also has a black pawn on e5. So this pawn on e5 is blocking the scope of this bishop. In contrast to this, if we look at the white bishop on e3, because the pawn is on e4 here, this is a good bishop with a lot of scope looking down the board. In contrast to this, the white bishop on f3 is considered a bad bishop because it's also looking at its own e4 pawn. So the first rule concerning bad bishops is look to trade off your bad bishop for a piece of equal or greater value. So with this in mind, if you want to pause the video here and have a think about what you would play with black, how you could execute a plan here to trade off the bishop on g7, then feel free to do so. Otherwise we'll continue on here. So in this position, black played the move pawn to h5. And what black is looking to do here is move the king to h7, where he can then move the bishop to h6, supported by the king on h7, the queen on f8, to be traded off with this bishop on e3. In response to this, white played knight to b5, hitting this pawn on c7. Black defended. White played c3 to stop the black knight jumping into d4. And now black starts with the plan to trade off this black squared bishop. King to h7. White plays knight to a3, looking to reroute the knight into c4. Bishop h6. So black completes the plan of trading off this bishop. White doesn't have too much choice but to oblige, so we have a series of exchanges here, and the position is now dead equal. Black has achieved equality and gotten rid of that bad bishop. The second rule concerning bad bishops is try and make your bad bishop a good bishop. So here we can see the bishop on c2 is blocked by its own pawn on e4, and so white would love to play the freeing move pawn to e5 to therefore make this bishop a good bishop. So if it were white to move in this position, they would no doubt play pawn to e5, drive away the black knight and open up the scope of their own bishop. However, it's black to move in this position. And so with proper positional understanding in mind, the number one move for black to play here becomes immediately obvious. The best move for black in this position is to play pawn to e5. And this serves the very important purpose already discussed of blocking the pawn on e4 so that it can no longer move, and thus cementing the bad bishop on c2 as a long-term positional problem for white. And the third and final rule concerning bad bishops is if you have a bad bishop and you're not able to trade it off and you're not able to make it a good bishop, then at least try and make it an active bad bishop. So here we can see that white has pawns on e4 and d5, and it's going to be very difficult to move those pawns to make this bishop a good bishop. And therefore a better plan is to look to make this bishop active and potentially exchange it off for a greater value piece if possible. Now it's clear in this position that white already has a huge advantage despite the bad bishop, but that's not to say that white should sit on his laurels. It's still a good idea to try and improve his worst piece here, which is the bishop on d3. So with that in mind, feel free to pause the video and have a think about what you would play, and we'll continue on here with how white played in this position. So white drops the bishop back to f1 here, and the plan that white has in mind is to bring the bishop to h3 and then either look to trade off with the rooks along this rank, which would obviously be a very favourable exchange, or if those pieces do move, then the bishop can always land itself on the e6 square with devastating effect. We can also see here that once the bishop comes to this diagonal, the c7 pawn is just going to collapse here. It won't be possible for black to actually hold on to that. So to recap on the 3 rules of using your bad bishops, firstly, try and trade it off for a piece of equal or greater value if you can. Secondly, try and turn it into a good bishop if you possibly can by moving forward your central pawns which are blocking that bishop's scope. And thirdly, if you can't do either of those things, then at least try and activate your bad bishop by moving that bishop outside of the pawn chain in the centre. And the final thing to note on this video is that these principles were taken from Jeremy SILMAN's book, How to Reassess Your Chess. This really is a fantastic book which has hugely improved my own chess, I'll drop a link in the description below if you do want to check out this book. I'd highly recommend it. There's really fantastic practical tips in here for improving your positional understanding, so it really is a good read for players of all levels. If you do have any comments or questions on this, then feel free to leave them down below. As always, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hope to see you again in another video.